Welcome everyone to Read the Book First. I'm so excited today. Today I have my bookish online friend Alyssa from Stories and Spoilers podcast. Wait, Spoilers and Stories?
Stories and spoilers,
Stories,
yeah.
Stories and
It's
Spoilers.
okay.
Yeah. Via shout out the book podcast connection group on Instagram. And I love your podcast. I
Oh,
listen to
thank
it
you.
when I come home from work a lot because you have like a very like bubbly, like positive vibe, even if you're like
Thanks.
talking about like stuff that isn't that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
I discuss like thrillers and like true crime, not true crime, but like when I discuss thrillers and suspense where stories can get kind of dark, I try to stay myself, you
Yeah.
know? Plus I'm studying criminal justice. I'm hoping to minor
Okay.
in it in college. So for me, it's
Cool.
like I tell people what I want to do or what I like,
Mhm.
and they're like, "But you're such a bubbly, nice person." I'm like, I feel like detectives can be very bubbly, nice people.
It's the enthusiasm.
Yeah, like I want to
Yeah.
be like a gay Nancy Drew. That is the hope.
Hell yeah.
No, that is the hope. Or a librarian. One of the I have one, I have two phases, and that's it. I have true
Hey.
crime, paranormal suspense, and I have librarian, like quirky. If a crime happens, I'll solve it. That's the vibe.
Yeah. Why don't you like you could be the gay Nancy Drew that's also kind of like Indiana Jones, but like not historically.
Yeah, the whip. Yes, I could. Yes, my name is Alyssa King. I'm the host of Stories and Spoilers, the podcast, which is super funny because it's kind of a tongue twister, and this girl's got a lisp, so that was not a great decision. But it was more so the hope with the podcast is that you can listen to an episode, and sometimes I will discuss the spoilers in a book in case you don't want to read it, but you want to know what happens. And for folks who have heard of the book and they don't want spoilers, I also do non-spoiler episodes. I have
Hmm.
authors on the podcast. I have my bookish friends on the podcast. I like to do special monthly episodes called Books for the Soul that highlight like Black bookstagrammers and authors who people may not know, and I want to kind of bring them up. It's just a really cozy, chill place. I want every episode to feel like a call with a friend. I want it to feel very comfortable. And some books are really chunky. Some books may not be your cup of tea. So listening to a spoiler episode allows you to hear about the book and you don't really lose anything because maybe it wasn't for you, but you did want to know what happened, or you've already read it and you wanted to hear someone talk all about it, and that's where I come in. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I do.
I really like your podcast, especially when
Thank
you talk
you.
about anything like scary or thrillery, because I'm a wimp. And so I'm like, well, I'm not gonna read that book because I'm gonna have nightmares, but I can listen to people talk about it.
Yes,
So
yes. Send me
yeah.
all your thriller and like suspense because I read really fast.
Hmm.
But I don't always know what people want to hear about. So I
Hmm.
love when people tell me like, "Hey, I want to hear about this," but it's kind of hyped and I'm not in the mood to read it, but I do want to know what happens. I'll read that puppy. I'll tell you all about it. I'll give you quotes, I'll give you spoilers, I'll give you a celebrity cast in my head, and then
Hmm.
you'll get all the things and then you can go to your friends and be like, "Oh my God, I loved The Handmaid."
Yes.
I loved it. I loved it. I loved the teacher, Frida McFadden. Ooh, you never read the book, but I'm here to help you so you can lie your way through it. So
Hell yeah. I love
everyone's
that.
like, I don't do that. We all know you do it. Fourth
We
Wing.
all look up the
Did
Wikipedia
you
page.
actually read Fourth Wing? I didn't. So this,
Definitely not.
no offense to the dragon girlies out there, but I DNF'd that puppy so quick. Page 10, bam! I closed it, donated it. And I love fantasy. So
Yeah.
sorry, kids. Sorry for the
It's
folks out there. Which
hey.
makes sense why we're talking about this book now, because I
Yeah.
love weird women. I love
Yes.
funky shit. And this book
Hmm.
was definitely
This book is weird girl lit. I think that's the like subgenre people have been calling
yeah,
this. And like
it's
what
weird.
else? Like I think Yellowface is included in that.
Yeah.
Like other like just weird girl lit. That's literary
A
fiction, but
little
like
strange. If this
just
book was
like
a
what?
cheese, it'd be blue cheese because it's a little funky. You
Oh
don't know if
yeah.
it's good to eat. This is what this book
But I'm
felt
gonna keep
like.
eating it.
Yeah, but I'm gonna keep eating it, I guess. So I love your podcast because for people out there who love to read but also love to see movies, how
Hmm.
often do we go into a theater and we're like, I loved the book, but the movie's nothing like the book. This is kind
Hmm.
of they're two separate things. Same character. It's like a fan fiction. There was the
Yeah.
book and now there's the
Hmm.
movie, and they feel kind of different,
Exactly.
like cousins. They look similar, but they're not the same. They're like cousins, you know? You ever heard that rule? Your eyebrows should be cut the
Yes, cousins,
sisters,
not sis
sisters, or something like that.
sisters, not cousins, or wait, not
Yeah, they're not
twins.
supposed to match like
Yeah,
perfectly, you know?
yeah,
But that's the same
yeah.
thing with the book to movie. It's like I think the only one that's super is like Hunger Games. I
Yeah.
think that's a book to film where I felt like it was pretty on point.
Hmm.
This book, I will also say, felt pretty. I liked the pacing. I will
Yeah.
give it that. I liked the pacing at certain.
I'm so excited to watch it. I'll Today we're gonna be talking about Nightbitch by Rachel
Yeah.
Yoder. This book was recently made into the movie featuring starring Amy Adams, which we'll talk about next episode.
Yep.
Um, but this book, I like brief synopsis is that this is a book about a mom of a
Hmm.
toddler who one day thinks is becoming a dog and then she becomes a dog. That's like the short tagline.
I agree. I
And if that's
agree.
interesting to you, you should read the book. If it's
It's
not interesting to you, don't read the
yeah.
book.
It's about a woman's experience with motherhood, an unfiltered thought. It felt like a long
Yes.
voice message. Like she was messaging someone,
Mm-hmm.
unfiltered thoughts, like almost like a diary entry, just
Yeah.
unfiltered thoughts.
Did you
Um,
listen to this or did you read it?
I listened to it. So I listened
Okay.
to it as an audiobook because I was told from a friend that the audiobook she preferred over the physical
Oh,
book. And I
okay.
was like, well, well, well. So I got the audiobook on Audible.
Mm-hmm.
It was around 8 hours
Okay.
with my speed. You want to see real speed? I listened to it on like I think 1.5 in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then for personal reasons, I moved on to like 2,
Yeah.
2.0.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it did lag a little bit to me in the middle to the end.
In the middle, it did lag. I agree.
In the middle a little, it
Yeah.
got repetitive. But
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, the weird girl vibes, I felt like the weirdness came from her like impulsive thoughts. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? But she was so sleep deprived. And
Mm-hmm.
for the moms out there, for the parents out there, I want to be inclusive of all folks, parents in general who
Yeah.
are like sleep deprived for like a good 2 years. Oh man, like she it just every day felt monotonous. Her
Mm-hmm.
perspective felt she was a reliable narrator to an extent.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for her like in so many moments, you know? So,
Mm-hmm.
and Amy Adams, yes, I will say next episode, I'm excited to dive into the differences between the book and film because
Yes.
the tone is so different to me
Mm-hmm.
than the movie. If you see the trailer for the movie and you think, I'll watch this movie, then I'll go read the book. Be aware, I will say this is one of those books where it felt like the tone was very different. I
Mm-hmm.
went in thinking it was going to be very different, you know? It was very hot and cold, like
Yes.
laughing and crying.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can
This
describe
book
it.
is manic. It definitely is
Mhm.
very manic. And I enjoyed it for that. Also, like for like context, I am not a parent. So like but I have a lot of like my best friends from high school are like recently parents. My brother has a 3-month-old baby. So like I'm
Oh.
around and talking to a lot of parents, but I am not one. I mean, I'm an animal parent, but that is nothing because I can ignore them when I sleep, you know?
I'm
But
I'm also an animal parent.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I did help my mom a lot when she first I have two brothers and they're only
Hmm.
a few months apart.
Hmm.
So with one was 1, the other one was around like 6 months.
Hmm.
Very young, like Irish twins. But yeah, I was there for my mom a lot during her postpartum. So
Yeah.
I can in certain parts of this book I could see
Yeah.
certain references to mental health. I could definitely
Hmm.
see that. Um, Lots of late nights. I
Yes.
couldn't stand husband. Sorry. Kicked them into the curb. Fucking hated husband. Sorry. And then I was like, you know what? Even though I am a lesbian, men are great. Okay, Andrew Garfield, I stand for you. I stand for you,
Yes.
Andrew You're a dad, an emotional boyfriend of the internet. He'll be a great father to
Mm.
somebody. Jason Momoa, I know he stays up late. I know he's a good father. This dad in this book, he didn't even, the main characters don't have names. They're simply
Hmm.
mother, husband,
Ex-husband. The
even like
boy.
yeah, even side characters. Like if you see like a one of the moms in the group, she goes by like
Hmm.
blonde something. Like you don't actually know their name.
Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
where the weird girl element came to me, where like they didn't have names. It wasn't relevant
Hmm.
to the story, and it never got confusing because she was so
Yeah.
isolated. There weren't that many people to reference, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, at the end of this episode, I'm excited to share like a recommendation if you like weird girl books where people don't have names and like the plot is very
Hmm.
like funky and strange. Oh, if you think this book was weird, I have a even funkier one for you, my man. If you want a real ride, real thunder ride, I have a real weird book for you. This I just really wanted at certain points to put her to the side and be like, I want to give you a hug. Like, go take a
Uh-huh.
I'll take care of this for you. She didn't have a babysitter. She didn't have like a friend to like help her out, get
Her
groceries.
mom, she's like disassociated from her parents, like
Yeah.
just like disconnected. Yeah, so this book is messy and like towards the end I'll talk like why I think it's messy, but I read the physical copy. And there are tons of run-on sentences.
Mhm.
There's no quotation marks when people
Oh
are
wow.
speaking dialogue. And I my undergrad degree is in English, and so in English literature. And so when I was reading this, I was like,
This is a
oh, if I
nightmare.
had to read this for a class, this is an English literature like it's just so fun. Like it just turned on that part of my brain, which I loved. And I can definitely like
Mm.
this book and like all weird girl lit, I guess we're gonna use that term like that. It's not for everyone, and that's
No,
okay, right? Which I
I
loved,
felt
but
that.
I love this. I love that she's called the mother lowercase m. So it's like I like that because it takes away from like it makes it more like this is could be any mom you know in
Mm.
suburbia, you know?
Yeah, I can
Um,
see that.
right. And so I liked that part of it, but the like the very first page, he's like, I noticed hair on my back. Like there's no like setup, like, oh, I had a hard pregnancy. None of that like setup. It's just like, hey, husband, I have hair on my back and my teeth
Hmm.
are pointy and I think I'm going crazy. And he's like, whatever. But
Yeah, he immediately pushes off what she's saying. It's not even like he's gaslighting her, making her think it's not there.
hmm
He genuinely is just like, even if it was, like he pokes at her teeth when she shows them to him. Like he kind of tells her, like, you always think
yeah.
something's wrong with you. You always A, B, and
hmm
C, invalidating a genuine concern she has. And he has
Yeah.
a job where he's a like an
He's
engineer.
and he's gone Monday through Friday
Yeah, he's
every
gone
week.
every week. And so she shares that the boy, her son is only 2 years old and she hasn't
hmm
slept in 2 years. And
hmm
everyone knows the terrible twos, which is an actual thing. Like
hmm
a lot of kids when they hit two, it's really hard, like it's hard,
Yeah.
and she's really struggling and it's apparent pretty early on
Definitely.
in the book that she's struggling mental health wise, like she feels lonely.
hmm
She mentions like her sexy life is like not nothing's going
Yeah.
on.
She
And a
mentions
lot of
the
her son's
yellow
going,
wallpaper.
yes, she mentions the
And
yellow wallpaper about like madness.
yes, and I think and she mentions that right away, which I love because that also tells the listener like, do you trust like stuff's about to get real weird and
Hmm.
you may or may not want to trust the like narrator of the story who's telling the story. And I liked that. And like right away on page like 8 of the book. So it's like very beginning, she goes like she's talking about how she like one night her baby is like wakes up and who's sleeping in their bed still. The husband is sleeping through, the baby's crying over pacifier or whatever. She starts like
Absolutely.
bark talking
Hmm.
and knocks over a lamp, doesn't even care that there's like the vase is like in her feet now, and she like yells and then goes back to sleep, and then she calls herself, she says, I am Nightbitch. And so now she bounces between being called the mother and Nightbitch. So we have
Hmm.
like these two personas of her going through. And I thought that was really interesting too to have it just right away. I like that it's right away to the point. We're getting into it. Um,
I love
uh,
that conversation as well when she describes like the light coming on after, like, I think the light on his side,
mhm,
like coming on and he's holding the baby and like he puts the binky in the baby's mouth. Be aware, this baby's like 2 years old and
mhm,
he's able to communicate what he wants. Later on in the book, the baby is able to communicate pretty clearly, like as a toddler,
yeah,
be like, he's like, this is my poop, this is that, wipe my butt.
yeah,
Like he's able to communicate what he needs. If he
mhm,
wants a binky, he's able to say no. Like he's able to
mhm,
communicate certain things, so he's not, to some extent, he's aware of what's going on
yeah,
around him, which makes the story, in my eyes, a little bit thrilling because all the things that she was doing, you thought he was just a baby, like he was just experiencing it with her. It's so wholesome, and you come to realize, no, he can respond, he can tell
yeah,
on her, he can do a lot of
mhm,
things. Her
mhm,
very creation, like her son, in a lot of ways, is also becoming his own person. Is he can remember all these things that his mom did,
yeah,
and that pressure on the mom versus the dad only went by husband. He didn't go by
mhm,
father in the
yeah,
story. He only went by husband.
mhm,
There also is a scene where he says, you were kind of acting like a bitch last night. Like he calls
yeah,
her a bitch.
Yeah.
And she says night bitch, and from the very
Yeah.
beginning she says it's self-deprecating. Like I know,
Mm-hmm.
I claim it. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, like she describes bitch, she's like, that's a very sharp word. If I'm a night bitch, then what does that make my male equivalent, like my son or
Yeah.
my
Like, is
husband?
there one, right?
Is there an equivalent? And she's like, well, it
Which
doesn't
there,
ring the same way. That's where
yeah.
she got a little funny to me. She was
Yeah.
like, yeah, maybe I was not being super nice last night. I made a note on this chapter where I was like, his response to the night bitch comment, like the self-deprecation, he was also a parent. So he should
Mm-hmm.
have gotten up to take care of the child. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, to have her, you're home, and she was almost like babying him. Certain things he did, I
Yep.
was like,
Like
there's
he can't
caring.
find anything. He
He
can't, like,
didn't know
she's
anything about
cooking
his
for
own
him.
house.
Yeah. Especially at the beginning. And like as like the first it's like there's three parts of the book. And the first
Mhm.
part when she's like slowly becoming Night Bitch, she also is like confronting all these like societal norms that she like is stuck in this cycle, and
Yeah.
this like and taking care of her husband is like part of it. Then she talks about it too. She's like,
Hmm.
I had to give up my job because it made less money, my dream of being an
Yep.
artist, like my friends, all of this, and he gets to go to the middle of nowhere, South Dakota for 5 days and then come back and play
Yes.
video games because
Yes.
he's tired.
There was a quote actually about that. I love
Hmm.
writing down quotes in books because I like to kind of,
Oh yeah.
it's almost like inspiration to me to understand
Hmm.
more and to look back at the story. And she says, and so when it came time to make a baby and then a decision, it was her husband who made more money and she who made less. The decision was simple.
Hmm.
And she also references that by 4 o'clock, the day is lost. Like her day, even if she keeps a schedule, and her husband says, like, keeping a schedule and all that bullshit. Even if she were to keep a schedule, it's so monotonous and it's so isolating. And she
Hmm.
feels like societally, she's constantly being judged. She constantly asks herself, am I being a good mother? I wish I could just run away. I wish I could just do A, B, and C. The pressure, he never, I don't think he acknowledged it in part one, part two, or part three, the amount of pressure she was
No.
under. Um, Even just the reference to like her job, she does describe like pumping,
Hmm.
like trying to pump in a room, and how difficult it was in the schedule and trying to pick up her son and like traffic. All just that
Hmm.
chapter alone, like really like made me
A lot of
anxious.
anxiety. Yeah, a lot of anxiety, definitely.
Yeah, because like it was all her. She was
Hmm.
all alone,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. Even though she had, and she does mention privilege as well. I do want to acknowledge
Yes.
that, which I liked. That was a good part where
Hmm.
she's like, my husband pays for everything. She's like, I feel like I have no right to complain, which is really sad because she had every right to complain. Like her
Yeah.
mental health and the
Hmm.
weird girl element to me wasn't even the dog transformation. The weird element for me was the way that she felt judged by other women and also judged other women
Hmm.
to such an extent that the dog element to me, the dogs were like the first friend she had. The first
Hmm.
like, like certain characteristics of the dogs. I was later like, I have friends who are like, who let me take care of this for you. How about you go
Yeah.
lay down? They literally pull you to go rest.
Yes.
There were
Yeah.
certain elements when the dogs came into the story, it
Yeah.
wasn't that weird for me
Hmm.
versus it was weird for me the way she would think about other women
Yes.
and then the way she would think about herself. It was very like she would shit
Yeah.
on them and shit on herself at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the beginning there. And like I was really when I started reading this, I was really worried that this is going to be like white feminism-y, which like it's
Sure.
definitely like an aspect of that because this is a
Sometimes.
white woman and she is like in suburbia, right? So there is an aspect of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like it dealt like she dives into like obviously I am very privileged and so
Yeah.
I have this guilt, but then also I am still dealing with these very serious real things. And I thought like it was a like well done balance so that a lot of these kind of like books I've read similar to this are like by other white authors. I'm like, but also like for example, I read Lessons in Chemistry, um,
Mm.
which is a
I
really
have
good
heard of it.
book. It was a really good book, but it takes place in the late 50s to early 60s, and it was a white woman in like STEM thing, but there's in STEM thing the career field,
That's
but
okay.
she's like a single mom. It's really like it's a good book, but there's not one character of color at all in the book, and I'm like, this is during the 60s. If you're gonna write a feminist book during the 60s, anyways, I was like angry about that.
No,
There was like,
like
right,
in theory,
like,
there should be room for all women. So if we're
mhm.
discussing
Yes,
motherhood and the female character
yes,
is white, okay, like That's
Yeah,
fine.
that's
But
fine. That
none of the
yeah.
other mothers in the group were described as like Asian, Black,
Hmm.
Hispanic. Like there
Yeah.
was no, but at the same time, is it necessary to describe their race? No. But
Yeah,
would it
not in
have
this
been,
book, but
yeah, but would it have been nice like to have another character in the
yeah.
story? That's where it got kind of weird for me is the women in the group blurred together. Like
Hmm.
there was only one girl in the group who had a person like a personality, if you will, but
Yeah.
she was only distinguished by a body part. Like, oh, she's
Hmm.
blonde, she smells like strawberries, and she's
Yeah.
like, like white.
Yeah.
That's the only description we really had. I
Hmm.
much would have rather had if we're gonna get weird, in theory, I thought of a book called Comfort Me with Apples,
Hmm.
which is weird.
Hmm.
Hear me out, hear me out. But like it's about a woman who's living in a house. She has a husband, he goes by husband. She
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily have a name outright. And
Hmm.
she ends up finding something in her house that's really strange. She ends up speaking to other women in the neighborhood. They go by Mrs. Fish, Mrs.
Hmm.
Horse, okay. And it feels very Stepford Wives, but
Yeah.
things aren't what they seem. It's definitely
Hmm.
giving like that movie with Harry Styles and Florence
Oh
Pugh.
yeah. Hmm.
It was giving a little bit of that, but it also had a weird her husband and her, she's like, I was made for him. I'm perfect
Hmm.
for him. You
Yeah.
think you know where it's going, and the story goes in a whole other direction. I promise you, it's not what you
Yeah.
think. You're like, oh, it's robots. Absolutely not. She's actually not a robot.
Dang.
Um, but it got gory, and it was all about the value of you as a person and like your
Hmm.
personality, and more so that if a woman's purpose is to create, if our purpose is to be the perfect spouse or whatever, if that was really the
Yeah.
purpose, what happens if our partner, if we do something wrong and they no longer want us? What's the point
Hmm.
now? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And in Nightbitch, she also references her life is like white walls. At one point, she was an artist and she had all this creation and she had all this
Hmm.
creativity. And she's like, okay, I feel like my whole life now is white walls. Like I had my son and I went from a girl to a wife to a mother. And she's like, I'm just trying to figure out what happens next. And I feel like there's a secret and no one's telling me the secret. And all these
Yep.
other moms are walking around like happy and great, but no one was
Hmm.
telling her the secret on how to like
Hmm.
what happens next, what happens to her, what's her
Hmm.
purpose outside of just this being a mom, being a wife. What about her personality? Her very mind is different. Like the chemicals
Yeah.
in her mind are different. And her husband was like, "Yeah, well, your teeth. Yeah, well, the hair." Like he didn't leave room. Nothing about him
Hmm.
changed. That was the haunting part for me was that for him, he could not see
Yeah.
until it got like really in his face how his wife was shifting and changing,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
It definitely especially in this first part because this first part she's like in
Mm-hmm.
the first act she's dealing with all of these like breaking down these societal things, thinking about the what ifs of her own life, then
Mm-hmm.
trying to parent, but then also she's like, I have hair, I have sharp teeth, I'm growing a tail. She goes to
Yep.
the library and like she sees all the like she calls them the book mommies, like they're like perfect, their kids are behaved, they're eating snacks,
Mm-hmm.
and her kid is like being disastrous and they're just trying to get books,
Yeah.
and she ends up getting a book, which I liked this element of it.
I did
I love
too.
when books talk about books.
Yeah, breaking the third wall.
Bookception, yes.
Yes.
um she gets a field guide to magical women by this Wanda White, and she
Mm-hmm.
starts reading this book. She finds a bit, she learns about these bird women who are women who did not have children. It's just described like in like an island Asian country. Maybe that's
Yeah.
just what I kind of I think is what it's described.
Mm-hmm.
But they go and they become birds, and then eventually once they get old enough, they leave the other bird women and never come back. Kind of just
Very
like as like
mystical, very
yes.
interesting, like very
Hmm.
lore-esque.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And
And
she
then
becomes like
there's
obsessed with it.
the book, and she reads it all the time. She starts
Mm-hmm.
writing emails to WW and signs them MM. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what is her name? But then I was thinking, I'm like, a W turned upside down is an M.
I thought the MM was referencing like maiden mother. That's what I
Ooh,
thought the
that's
MM was in
fun.
ref. Yeah, I was like, I wonder if it's maiden mother, like almost like that cyclical.
Yeah.
I will
But
say that I thought it was about like creation. I don't know why,
yeah.
but like my brain was like, is it about, because she kept referencing girlhood, and I
Hmm.
love reading about like girlhood and this sense of like how do you know when women stick together? I love learning about like survival and like the
Hmm.
animalistic side of women. And she references this fire. I have read in other books where they reference a
Yes.
woman's fire and like that fight inside of us.
Hmm.
There's another quote, and I'm like, let me pull it out of my notes. There's another quote. It says, you light a fire early in your girlhood. You stoke it and protect it at all odds. You don't let it rage into a mountain of light because it's not becoming of a girl. You keep it secret. You let it burn. You see it in the eyes of other girls. You tend the flame because if you don't, you're stuck in the cold, doomed to settling. See it another way, his way.
Hmm.
That very line, listen, I was like, I get it. Like, she is weird to some extent, but she's unhinged enough that she's honest. Like, all that, like, all the
Yes.
bullshit about, like, this isn't, this isn't appropriate, or you
Hmm.
shouldn't say that, or you can't say that. I
Hmm.
liked when she was honest in her own mind, when she was
Hmm.
like, you know what? I used to have this thing inside of myself, and I feel it, like, fading. And I don't know what to do. Like that vulnerability and that sense of like, do I regret having a kid? No, but it's
Yeah.
a lot, you know? And
She,
I'm just like,
yeah,
that's amazing. At least she can admit it. It's overwhelming. She's tired. She's fucking tired. Like,
absolutely.
hell
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this book made me ask my own mom like questions after reading the book. I
Hmm.
was like, this one becomes a dog. And my mom was like, yeah, well, our organs are moved around and I don't really think the same way. And I know when
Yeah.
you're, she's like, I can feel you even from far away. Like, how is that not animalistic? She's like, I know, and she's like, if someone
Hmm.
were to hurt you, I get angry on a whole other level. Like it's an animal like feeling of protection.
Yeah.
So the dog thing, even talking to another mother, she's like, well, did she transform to protect her child? I'm like, no, she transforms, for other reasons. And my mom's like, well, the only other reason I would transform is to be free. And I was like, there you go. There you go.
Yes.
I thanked her immediately
Yes.
after. I was like, thank you for life. But also I was like, thank you, mom, for all your service. She was like, you're welcome. I was like, yeah. But in long story short, I was like, I need you to answer this very important question. She was like, okay. But
Cute. I
yes,
love that.
immediately like, do you regret? She's like, no. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Yeah, it was a weird girl aesthetic. But
Yeah.
speaking to a grown adult weird woman
Hmm.
who's amazing, love my mom. She was able to respond genuinely where like the
Yeah.
dog thing isn't that weird. Like all
Yeah.
the changes women go through, that was actually not the super weird part. Like it wasn't body horror either. For people who are like
Mm-mm.
concerned about that, I didn't think it was like horrific the way she
No.
transformed. It was more
No.
like metaphor. I thought it was more
It was
metaphorical.
so metaphorical because each time because I was annotating my book, like each time she transforms and like we haven't
Mhm.
really talked about that much, but like it just says that like she like haunches her back and
Yep.
her fingers become claws and
Hmm.
she starts running. It's more about the action and less of like what she does as a dog and less of how she looks as the dog. And I
Yeah.
also and I love that. Like she turns into a dog, she goes like for the first time after the Mommy and Me group, I believe, right? Yeah. Um, and she's like running and running and running, and she is feels free.
Mm.
Actually, no, she doesn't turn into a dog then. No, I'm wrong. Sorry. Before then, after she does go to the Mommy and Me group, and the three women we have, she calls her Big Blonde, and then there's two like sidekicks.
Yes.
They like try to introduce her, and she's like trying to avoid moms because she has this like thing where she's
Hmm.
like, I am friends with artists. I am
Yeah.
friends with creatives. I'm not friends
Yeah.
with moms who love to mom. Like it's like in the first bit of the book, right? And
Right.
this does change
A little bit of
as
self-hatred as well. I'm not
absolutely.
like you. I'm
This
not
book
like
is
you.
yeah, it's full
Yeah.
of self-hatred. Yeah, absolutely. Especially
Yeah.
the first part. But
Yeah, definitely part one. The way she looks at the other
mhm,
mom group when she goes to the library, she goes to the library, finds
mhm,
the book, sees the
mhm.
mom group. When they try to ever interact with her,
Yeah.
she's acting like they're like these like popular girls who are gonna like pick at her. But
Yeah.
I mean, but she's been so isolated and to some extent self-isolating.
Self-isolated apart. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like they don't want to hang out with her. It's that she doesn't want to hang out with them.
Yeah. Hmm.
Not like you,
Yeah.
but she never asked them what they're going through.
Hmm.
She's like
Yeah.
she does reference it in the book where she's like, I'm in a prison of my own making. girl,
Yeah.
like she knows,
She knows, she
she's a
acknowledges.
person
Yeah.
of her own make. There's a line where she's like, and I eat fig Newtons at night, so, well, I try not to cry. I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, emotional eating,
Yeah.
that's realistic. People do that all the
Yeah.
time. I've done that. People
Mhm.
do that.
Yeah.
But it's all internal. It's
Yeah.
all internal versus people are looking at her like, hey, do you want to, bring your kid over? He'll play with my kid. We can have drinks. I have these vitamins. I have these
Hmm.
vitamins. I winky wink because in the book, I feel like that was a metaphor too. Like
The
the
herbs.
the herbs they were trying to give her
Yeah.
and all
I
that.
was
I was
like,
like,
the only thing I know that's called herb
what are
is
the
weed.
herbs?
I'm
I thought
like,
it was the herbs. But they
yeah.
weren't. They were like herbs for like health. Like it was something like that. And mom's like, I have so much energy now. I'm like, are these
Yeah.
actually like supplements?
I
I don't know.
Yeah, as soon as they
Yeah.
mentioned like I'm selling herbs and having a party, and I was like,
Yeah, I'm like,
MLM,
what
stay
kind of herbs are we
away,
discussing
run
right here, girl?
away.
What are we discuss? Are we
Yeah.
gardening? I know people call it gardening. Some people call it gardening.
Gardening.
Is it
Yeah.
gardening? I don't know, but I
Yeah.
will say that they were trying the girl with the blonde hair. I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't remember the name they used for her, but
It's at first it's big blonde is what she's referred to
yes, big
because she's
blonde.
tall.
Yes, I imagined for big blonde. I imagined I don't know why the girl from Mad Men who is like a strawberry blonde.
Yes.
That's who I imagined at first. And I had to
Yeah.
think of like a tall who
Hmm.
could pull off blonde. Strawberry
Hmm.
blonde's still blonde. I was
Yeah.
like, and she's supposed to smell like strawberries and she's supposed to have two twins and have her shit together. I was like, oh yeah, I'm thinking
Yeah.
of the girl from Mad Men. Hell
Yeah.
yeah. But okay, girl. But that's how my brain works. When I read books and I hear about other women, I don't
Hmm.
think she's better than me. I hate her.
Yeah.
I don't think that. I just think, okay, she probably works very, very hard to
Hmm.
maintain that. Good for
Yeah.
her. If anything, I would ask for tips. Like,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what
It's
I
just
mean?
it's just the amount of shame that
Yeah. And the
the
amount of
mother
hate
slash has at this point. Yeah.
for
But
herself.
mhm.
Even her husband, she mentions to him the book moms. And even
Mhm.
he's like, oh, how were they? Like, he doesn't even respect them,
Yeah.
which is like, why not? Like, what is this
Mhm.
bad? Like, I just didn't get it. Like, what was this the judgment of the other mothers? And like, even the artist, her artist friends, she does reference being kind of like pompous, being very
Yes.
self-centered,
Hmm.
like they did like in part one she references her art in a loving way. That was the most dreamiest thing to me
Hmm.
was when she would reference like opening up the art container before she saw the lump on her lower back.
Hmm.
When she goes to look at her lower back and she sees a lump and
Yeah.
it's hot to the touch, I'm like, oh my God, it's like it's a cyst.
Yeah.
And they reference like maybe it's a cyst. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
cool.
No,
Go to a doctor, go to a
hmm.
dermatologist.
No, she just,
She
casually
just
cuts it.
yeah, she gets
Ugh.
like a little blade from her like art kit. She opens it, the smell of the art and like the
Hmm.
paint brings her back. She wants to cry, which made me so sad because it's almost like
Hmm.
she'd put away a part of herself.
Yeah.
Um, and she pulls out the blade and does, trigger warning, heads up, she does end up opening up the cyst.
Hmm.
And she references like hair coming out. And then we later learn in the story that that's a real thing. Like, there are
Yeah.
cysts that have that. So it
Hmm.
kind of explains away. It could be a tail. It could
Yeah.
be
Hmm.
actual medical thing. But when she says she would feel happy, she would imagine her tail like wagging. She would imagine having this visceral reaction. I was like, okay, night bitch. Okay, girl. So if your tail is wagging, like if we're gonna be a dog, let's be a
Hmm.
dog, my man. Like, what kind
Yeah.
of dog would you be? Like a German Shepherd? Like you can't be a
Yeah.
golden retriever because the blonde
Yeah.
girl's a golden retriever.
Yep. Yep.
Spoiler alert. They kept alluding to it. I'm like, that girl's a golden retriever. She smells
Yeah,
like
and it's
strawberries.
yeah.
She's a golden retriever.
And it's like, so the one day, like after the whole tail situation happened, she in
Hmm.
the book stuff, then one day she's finally like, okay, me and the boy are gonna have a schedule and I'm gonna get out of
Yeah.
this. Like, I'm gonna start trying to find happiness. I'm gonna get out of this cycle. And they go outside and there's three dogs on their lawn. There's a golden retriever,
Hmm.
there's a basset hound, and there's
I
a
don't remember
collie,
the breed. Yes,
a
but I
border
kept,
collie.
it said border collie. I kept thinking of corgis. I was, I heard C and I was like, my dream dog. It's a corgi. No, it was not. It was
Collies.
border collie. But the descriptions of each dog matched the descriptions of the three
Of the
main
three,
book
exactly.
crew.
But
Yeah.
like, and she kind of puts that together later on, but it's
Hmm.
never like, but like way later
Cemented.
on. It's never cemented exactly, but they end up like playing for hours with these dogs and like roughhousing with the dogs, playing catch, and like this is like the first like happy
So
day.
wholesome. It was actually really
Yeah.
sweet. I thought it was super cute.
It was
Like,
super sweet. Yeah.
yeah. And her
Yeah.
son is still young enough that he has this innocence. He's willing to
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it. And the only other person she can be vulnerable and honest with is her son.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even with her husband, the relationship just felt so cold to
Yeah.
me. Even in
Mm-hmm.
the most intimate scenes, I'm like, this feels transactional.
Yeah.
Like you have this intimate moment and then he immediately leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she warms up his towel the same way she warms up her son's towel. She
Yeah.
puts his clothes in the toilet. There's caring for your partner, and then there's like it felt like she was a mother double
Yeah.
in some way. The same thing she would do for her son, she would do for her husband. We
Mm-hmm.
never saw him care for her. Like
Mm-hmm.
we never saw him make her dinner. We never saw him,
He doesn't
you know,
put the kid to bed.
yeah, put her her
Mm-hmm.
cycle's coming. We never see him get tampon. Like we
Yeah.
don't see him like voluntarily. Like he used to be told to do
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only reason I didn't feel like this was a love. If this was a love story, a weird love story, it was a love story between the mother and the son,
Yeah.
and
Or the mother and herself.
the mother and herself. It
Yeah.
was very pure. I didn't feel like the love story was necessarily the marriage.
No.
It
No.
definitely was like herself or her
Mm-hmm.
son, like the purest love.
Yeah.
Because the husband, I just felt like he used her in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
And I feel like part of the reason why the husband is so out of the story is so that the story can focus on Nightbitch, because I feel like
Maybe.
even if he was working from like in the local town or whatever
Mhm.
and still at home every single day, I feel like he would still that like his actions would not change, but
Yeah.
it would change like the flow of like what she's focusing on, you know? So I
Hmm.
feel like it's probably like a narrative thing of why he's so far.
I can see that.
In my opinion, just like because she is supposed to be so isolated, which adds to the whole night bitch effect of everything,
Mhm.
that like even if he was just there and being mentioned, it would, you know what I mean? I feel maybe that's why, maybe not. But
I also think it's her returning to her truest form. What's the
yeah.
next form? So if it's she references being a girl, a wife, a mother, and then what was the
Hmm.
next form? The book you referenced that she read, there is a
Hmm.
part of the book that I feel like perfectly summarizes the entire story, which is when
Hmm.
the Miss White, the author, expresses to what identities do women turn when those available to them fail? How do women expand their incentives to encompass who they are, like their beings? So, what
Hmm.
happens to us after let's say one personality for you fulfilled everything? What happens when something big happens? So you get married, or you have a child, or you get into an accident, something bad happens, or something big happens. You can no longer turn to that original personality. It can no longer
Yeah.
help. So, what do you turn to? She turned to the most primal, honest, I don't give a fuck. This is really
Hmm.
how I feel, if we're being honest. That was like she turned to Nightbitch. And she does reference in the book, Nightbitch had always been there, not even that deep under the surface. She knew that part of herself was always there, but it was very hidden because it wasn't
Yeah.
societally appropriate. And she does
Hmm.
reference that in part one, I believe, part one or part two,
Hmm.
about it alludes to her family being very religious,
Yeah.
and in the book, her mother is alive
Hmm.
and they are just not close. And
Hmm.
her mom references labor. Her mom, oh, this is so fucked up. But her mom says that um they call it labor because it's hard work. When
Hmm.
she called her mom to ask, like, I'm scared to be in pain, I don't know what to expect, the mom's like, yeah, they call it labor because it's hard work. I don't think they reference what specific religion they were part of, but we
Hmm.
know that her mom gave up a lot. She was going to be a
Yeah.
singer, gave that up. We would see her crying in the grass. She would find herself licking herself.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Mm.
So, uh, so Rachel Yoder is originally from a Mennonite community, and then her parents were
Mm.
both raised in Amish communities. And so, um, this book, and I'll talk about it more once we actually get to the end of it. This book is a lot of, I think, Rachel Yoder in it, and I am
Mm.
assuming that, especially because when we find out more and more about her mom. It's like she like or like her family, she remembers going into like the meat locker and like
Mhm.
the hard work of actually butchering meat,
Mhm.
especially because at towards the end of part one into part two she becomes becoming obsessed with meat and
Yeah.
goes to the grocery store and goes on like a crazy like spree to get all the meat she can.
She's eating raw
And
meat.
Yeah. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, she feeds raw meat to her son.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's
Only
not
small
Tatar.
pieces, only small pieces. I was like, girl, honey, you're an adult. Do what you please. But your
Yeah.
child, like he
Yeah.
trusts you. What are you
Yeah.
doing? But she was like, she's like, I know what my child can, I cannot. And that's what I started to feel like, okay, this could easily go into political place as well. Where she was referencing like what her son, like I know what he needs. I know the husband's like, what if he has a cold or something? He got
Hmm.
sick. The mom looks at he looks just fine. Look at his big
Hmm.
rosy cheeks. Look at his blonde hair. He's fine. Girl, you're not a doctor. Like you
Yep.
don't actually
Hmm.
know if he was sick right now. Like you don't
Yeah.
know. But she's like, I would know. That's when I was like, all right, honey bunny. Like feel what
Hmm.
you want to feel, but your son trusts you. Like
Yeah.
you're in his
Yeah.
care. Same thing with the husband. If the roles were reversed and we found out a man was feeding his child raw meat,
Hmm.
I don't remember her cleaning the meat. I don't remember hearing her clean the meat.
Yeah. Hmm.
How is this like
Yeah. It's
I'm not judging her either. I'm not trying to mommy shame her in any way, but I'm just sitting here and I'm like, the
it's
husband had a
just
right at that point to
gross.
say, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he and she would get angry with him if he
Hmm.
communicated I'm not comfortable with something. She would
Hmm.
in her mind she'd be like he's saying it like as if the conversation's over, which I could see her point of view as well. There should be
Yes.
a
Yeah.
discussion, but it
Yeah.
felt very there are certain things that happen in the book that's where it started to get a little weird for me. Her choices paralleled what her child would have to live through.
Hmm.
And that was never discussed. Like just because you're going through something does not necessarily mean your child has to now go through the exact same journey you're going
Hmm.
through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and especially like at the point where after she like has had her like first like dog transformation and like
Mm.
that pack of dogs is like playing with her and then they all leave like a bunch like a pile of dead rodents like she's
Yeah.
like accepted into the pack, right? Like
Yeah.
as
And
a
her son like
gift.
takes a rat. Like her son finds a
Hmm.
rat, brings it to her. Oh, don't touch that.
Yeah.
He shows her this big pile of like he brings her to the
Yeah.
front door and she sees it.
Yeah.
And you're right. She is
Hmm.
technically that was an
She's like
offering from the pack.
hmm and like that's the first time she's like accepted and that's like where like the switching point is from her being like, whoa, I'm
I'm
feeling
all
weird to
alone.
like I'm going into this thing and then
Ooh.
like
I didn't
at
think of it
one
that way. Yeah, like a
hmm,
cult.
it's
Is
almost
it like a
almost
is it like a cult? Oh
I
my
mean
God. Are we in a cult?
oh, is motherhood a cult?
No.
Mm,
Mate, you know what? Is
high
motherhood a
demand
cult?
group,
Is motherhood a cult?
is it? I mean I'm not a
Whoa.
mom. I know a lot of
Whoa.
moms. I just want I'm
Okay,
not gonna go
okay,
any
okay,
further.
English degree. Oh, okay, degree. It's coming through. You have a
But
degree and you know everything about everything. Is motherhood a cult? Oh man. Dang. If
um
motherhood's a cult, what does that make fatherhood?
nothing.
Whip, whip,
Well,
whip. Case closed.
yeah.
We're
I mean,
joking. We're totally joking.
traditional. Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely
mean,
joking.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I don't know.
But when the husband comes home that weekend, there's like a clean house, the
Yep.
doors are all open, and then the boy is
Yeah.
playing with a silverbacked dog. And as
Yeah.
soon as the dog makes eye contact with him, the dog just runs out.
Dips.
And then she just like has like a night being a
Yeah.
dog. Like she chases some rabbits, she kills them.
Yeah.
And like so now she's like full dog mode, which again, it's like it's not that it's like grotesque. It's just like, is this like is she a dog? I
Is
mean, the
this
way she
real?
describes running and
Yeah.
smelling and suddenly not being scared of the like of the houseless people who are on the benches,
Mm-hmm.
like so like which is like okay, they're like being a dog literally gives her like because like as like any women and like just non-cis
Yeah.
men out there like at night I don't walk outside without my pit
Walking
bull
around at night.
like mm,
No. It's
exactly.
a you would have to be in a very safe neighborhood to be able to walk around at night and
Hmm.
feel like very secure.
Yeah.
I don't know if people have like seen this meme, but it's like big dog privilege where
Yes,
folks who walk around at
hmm,
night and they've got like a big dog and they feel
that's
safe
why
because they've got a big dog. You know what I mean? But
me and my
even
pitty.
then, like for horrible
Yeah.
people out there, you can't always even a big dog isn't necessarily gonna be your
Hmm.
protector, but you trust that your dog will warn you. You know, so it's
Yeah.
even with that, like women who walk around with like their keys between their fingers.
Yep.
We have some people have batons in their cars,
Hmm.
mace, tasers.
Yeah.
Um, they feel perfectly fine having a weapon because they don't feel safe walking around
Hmm.
their own neighborhood to
Yeah.
work, working
Hmm.
out. I think the scene where she references that she didn't feel safe going to the park at night, and she
Yeah.
saw people like passing, trigger warning about like drugs. She sees people passing like pipes.
Mm-hmm.
It's referenced, and she says that she goes there and she can smell them, and she smells the grass, she smells all the animals, and it's almost to that extent the whimsicalness of I am a dog, I am free,
Mm-hmm.
nothing can hurt me. If there's a mouse, something it gets too close to her son, she'll kill whatever gets too close to protect him.
Yeah.
And even the chapter where she does, the husband finds her. The
Mm-hmm.
chapter is called In the Distance, She Heard Her Husband Calling for Her.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows he was calling, Where's my wife? She runs
Mm-hmm.
anyway because she was never going to be able to get out
Yeah.
with him there. Like I don't know how to
Yeah.
describe it, but she wants to go to like the grocery store at one point and
Mm-hmm.
just walk around. She wants to go to a coffee shop. She
She
wants to
wants
be
alone
alone for a
time.
second. And
Yeah.
her husband, he doesn't say anything, but it's referenced that her husband was home. They end up bringing the child and her husband to the grocery store, even though she wanted to be alone because he
Yep.
couldn't do it by himself. Like he couldn't take care
Mm-hmm.
of this. The bath scene. He's
Yeah.
sitting on the toilet. He's on his phone. He couldn't get the towel by himself. He couldn't get the clothes by. He couldn't get toast for his son. Like he couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get. He wouldn't, do it. So
Yeah.
when she runs away as a dog, I'm not even mad at her because it's the
No,
first time
absolutely
she's
not.
away from
Mm-hmm. She's
them for a
away
little
from her
bit.
responsibility. She
Hmm.
has like not just like freedom literally from
Yeah.
like this house, but also like the safety, the like confidence, like everything like
Hmm.
she's missing. And but then she also kills a bunny. So therefore it goes from just like
Yeah.
being free to like it's just like, you know,
Control.
it's
I
like
That's what I when she
exactly.
when she does kill the bunny in my head,
Hmm.
I thought if part one had to be a single word, part one felt isolated.
Yes. Yes.
It felt isolated. It felt
Hmm.
lonely. The moment those dogs leave the offering at her door, you're right.
Hmm.
She's in the
Yeah.
pack. She's protect.
Hmm.
You're not alone. Like you got a girl group. You know what I mean? Like night bitches unite. If you're
Yeah.
a night bitch, we're all night bitches. Night bitches unite. You know what I mean? So it was almost reclaiming that sense of like I hate people say this. They're like, oh, you don't be bitchy, like don't be rude. You know what I mean? If you speak up and you
Yeah.
don't like something and you speak up, they're like, well,
Hmm.
you're being mean.
Yeah.
But if a man were to do it, if someone else were to say, hey, don't do that, I don't like that,
Hmm.
and you know what I mean? And they come from a
Yeah.
position of power, normally, I
Hmm.
feel like they're not going to be called a bitch.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like in that way. But
Yeah.
if they're acting in a certain manner, like, oh, you're saying too many things, or I don't like your attitude, you're acting like a little
Hmm.
bitch. And then it becomes almost like a slight. It becomes a slight. I hear people
Yeah.
say it even now. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting here and I'm like, okay, how did you come into this earth?
Hmm.
A bitch made you. Like I'm sitting here,
Hmm.
I'm like, a woman made you. Like I
Yeah.
I think you should be saying thank you. And that's my thing where it's like if people say like you're being a pussy. In this book, she even says,
Yeah.
I push someone out of my vagina. Like I can
Hmm.
crack a walnut with my vagina. She's literally saying, like,
Yeah.
I'm not weak. Why are you
Hmm.
treating me like I'm this weak, like no purpose person? Like
Yeah.
he never said it, but it definitely felt like throughout the book if she wasn't with the mom group and she wasn't with her son, it felt like she was completely invisible.
Hmm.
And that was horrible. And it took her
Hmm.
having to like be loud and be big for
To
people to
turn
see.
into an animal,
And she
to
had to be
literally
like she had to become something else to be heard.
and to like see and hear herself because like as
Yes.
part two goes in, like she starts interacting with the group more and learning about
Hmm.
this like herb life, which is like a
Yeah.
big old MLM.
Even
But
ask
she's
them, what
also
is this
like,
herb? She's not afraid to ask them.
yeah,
She doesn't just agree
she's
right away.
decides to start wearing whatever she wants. She like
Hmm.
not only doesn't shower due to her like depression, but she like starts like teasing her hair to make
Yeah.
it like bigger, which
Yeah.
I thought was interesting, like a choice.
I
But
like
like
that she was literally willing to
yeah,
take up more space. Like there was a point
yeah,
she's like, I don't know the last time I washed the sports bra.
yeah.
She couldn't recall the days anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband didn't see
Mm-hmm.
a problem. Like he didn't see, and then he does reference one day when he comes to the front door. I think it was like the part two.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, her cheeks were so rosy and her freckles and her hair was so
Yeah,
big
because they've been outside.
because she's been
Yeah,
outside, girl. Like she's
yeah,
been having a good
yeah,
time.
yeah.
It was only when she looked good that he noticed her
Mm-hmm.
versus when she was struggling, no sex life. What can you do for me? Our
Hmm.
son needs this. I need this. Her only
Hmm.
purpose was to serve him.
Yeah.
And then once he sees her begin to change, we get the sexy scenes, if you could
Hmm.
even call it that. We get sex scenes. We
Hmm.
get him when he finds the dog in the house.
Hmm.
I thought for a minute, you thought what? I thought that you were the dog.
Hmm.
Why would you
Yeah.
think that? Because you would
Yeah.
have to believe her. You would have to actually validate that your
Hmm.
weird wife
Yeah.
might be right about something. But
Yeah.
he was like a scientist. So for him, if it wasn't logical, it wasn't real.
Hmm.
His
But he
opinion was,
also like loved weird things. Like she talks about
yeah,
how
the
when he
file.
was in the file, where he collects quote everything good from the internet, which was just like
So
essentially just
weird.
weird shit.
Weird
Which like
shit.
you do you. Like if it's public on the internet, it's public on the
Yeah.
internet. But
Listeners,
also,
no, it
ooh,
wasn't weird like a cat playing a piano. Because there was a
no.
no,
It
it
was
was
like stuff about
weird.
peeing on
It
things and
was
like
weird. Like it
it was
was,
weird.
listen, we're not gonna kink shame here, but there were
No.
certain things in the photos that I heard, and
Hmm.
and she says, I knew I was gonna marry him from this point. I went, girl, why? She's like,
Arts. She's an
moment,
art
I knew I was
person.
gonna marry him. I'm like,
Weird.
why
Yeah.
does this file make you?
Hmm.
Because he has humanity and he sees more in humanity. He's not judging them. I felt like he was judging them. I felt like
Hmm.
he was getting his kicks off of judging others. But
Yeah.
Mother is like, yeah, he wasn't judging them. He's just like
Yeah.
quirky like me. I'm like, no, girl. Why is this the reason you want to marry? I feel like she needed a friend who was like, what the fuck did you just say? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like she needed a friend to like kind of pull, like ground her a little
Hmm.
bit. What do you
Yeah.
mean this man's got a file on his computer of weird
Yeah.
shit? And then after she had her baby, she's like, I don't want to look at the file anymore.
Hmm.
Why don't you want to look at the file anymore?
Yeah.
Why not? She never says why. She just didn't want to, she's like, oh, my brain, I can't handle it anymore. So the reason you marry this man, you don't want to look at the reason you,
I know. It's weird.
tell me that's
Yeah.
not weird. Tell me that's
It's
not a
weird.
red flag. It's not beige. It's red. Like it's not green. It's
Yeah.
red, you know?
I
Yeah, that was
I
weird.
definitely. If part one's word was like isolation, I think part two would be like power or influence because it's like that's like the
Mm.
theme I think of part two was like she's starting to feel her power, like she's getting control of her schedule. Her and
Yes.
her son do their doggy games where they literally just pretend to be dogs, it's not pretend are dogs, whatever that like
They
word
they
line there.
they have fun.
The
The
boy
finger
ends up,
painting they didn't have fun. This they
yeah.
had fun.
Yeah. The boy ends up so much into this whole play that he ends up wanting to wear a collar and leash and like which is like an odd thing, but also like 2-year-olds have weird interests. If you've ever met a 2-year-old, you know, they like the
Come
like
on.
any yeah,
My
whatever.
brother ate a dime. People call him
Yeah.
Dominic. Like, I don't. I told him, you can do anything you put your mind to. This boy ate a dime because, in his mind, as a
Yeah. Yeah.
toddler, he thought nothing can hurt me. You'll be
Yeah.
here to catch me. Nothing will hurt me.
Yeah.
Actually, you should not be eating inanimate
Hmm.
objects. It's called
Hmm.
pica. But you know what? It's he didn't have pica. But long story short, it's one of those things where I'm just sitting here and I'm
Yeah.
like, I when people say
2-year-olds
like
do stuff.
kids do weird stuff. No, kids
Yeah.
really do weird shit. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Boys, girls, like anybody, kids do
Yeah.
weird shit. But it's
Absolutely.
sometimes it's not that deep. Like the dad
Yeah.
was like, "Well, there's a dog bed," and the mom's like, "Well, he's sleeping.
He's sleeping and I'm not fighting me to sleep. And like even
He's
going to eventually
sleeping."
going to sleep without her telling him, like the more she becomes dog-like in her mothering, the more well behaved he is. Not necessarily behaved
Yeah,
as in he sits quietly in a chair, more that like he just listens and he
he
has better
responded.
instincts. Yeah.
He took her more seriously. Yeah,
And
I don't
so
think
it's
he
like
actually took her seriously.
yeah, I think, and so it's not just like her power to control her own like life, but her power and influence of her son
I
becoming
agree.
more dog. And then she keeps running into the book mommies who now we know the blonde one, his name is Jen.
Hmm.
And as someone named Janessa, I was very offended, but that was the choice, but whatever.
I was like, "Damn, girl,
I know.
they
But
picked a name." I went, all right,
yeah.
Jen." She got
And
upgraded. Girl got a name. Mother doesn't
she
even
got
have a name.
Mother doesn't have a name, but Jen does. But she becomes like more and more needy, and it's like I needed to buy these herbs, and it's like then
Hmm.
I thought originally it was gonna go like some weird way that the herbs is gonna start a whole nother
Ooh.
like cult thing. It didn't, which is like fine. But that's what I
A
was
red
thinking at
herring of
first,
sorts. Yeah,
kind of, which I
it
think
wasn't anything.
was good. I think to have another like it's a sign that other moms in this world which is our world supposedly,
Yeah.
other moms also have their weird things that have their
Yes.
issues. Like it's like that it starts getting bigger and bigger. She starts acting more like a golden retriever, as in like, I need your energy, your eyes on me. And like I used to had a golden growing up, and that's how
Mhm.
they are. They're like squirrel energy, pet me, let's
I
go, hang
like
out.
that. I didn't think
Hmm.
about it that way.
Yeah.
I thought the herb was a catalyst to get her alone. I
Hmm.
thought the herb was a way to say, "Hey, come to this thing. We're selling
Hmm.
the herb." And then the woman ends up saying, "We just drink wine. You can bring your kid, and then our kids
Yeah.
will be there." She's like, "It's just an excuse to get out of the house. It's an
Hmm.
excuse to have something of your own."
Yeah.
And when the
And
mother kept
that's what
pushing her
gets
off,
her. Hmm.
yeah, she's like, "Girl, I'm busy too."
Hmm.
I think that's what it took to wake the mom up and be like, "Hey, these girls aren't just chasing you down because they want you so bad. They have lives too. Like, get out of your
Yeah.
own bubble for a second." You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
They're offering you
Um,
community.
they just wanted to hang out with
Mhm.
you. You know what I
Is that
mean? Like,
community a multi-level level marketing
yeah.
system? Yes, it
Oh my
is. But
gosh, yes,
that
the
is part of
pyramid
motherhood.
scheme. Yeah, the once again circling back to,
Um,
but it's just it's very it's in a way the same way that we have cycles
hmm.
like a period in
Hmm.
this book. It's not very often in books that I read about periods like from the
Hmm.
main character. I feel like it's not mentioned quite often.
Yeah.
It was nice to read about that in a book where she's very upfront about like, I know this period is going to be heavy. I know
Hmm.
I can feel my body getting ready. That's very natural to
Yeah.
feel your body shifting and changing and getting ready for a certain time.
Hmm.
She had no shame about it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of refreshing for her to be like, you know what? My period's coming. I can feel my emotions shifting. I don't have control necessarily.
Hmm.
I've never felt so seen in a
Hmm.
book that way. That was one of those moments where I was like, man, this is kind of nice to
Hmm.
have a character be like, you know what? I can feel like I'm not
Yeah.
going to be in the mood. I'm already kind of aching. I'm in pain. And she still had to be there for her son. She
Yep.
still had to put up with her husband, like trying to get like rubbing on her shin and like
Hmm.
even that scene for me was so uncomfortable. As someone who's very
Hmm.
sex positive, he was touching her when she was communicating she was not interested and
Hmm.
she said no. She's like, no, not tonight. Um, but I just didn't feel, I felt like in part two, she was more empowered enough that she was able to communicate to him when she was available, let's go,
Yeah.
and when she was
Yeah.
not. Versus in part one, I felt like she was already aloof the whole time. Like she
Yeah.
resented him from the very beginning, and she could never
Oh,
tell him.
absolutely. Yeah.
In part two, I feel like if he asked her a genuine, she would have been able to tell him, like, fuck you. But
Yeah.
also, we can do things because I want satisfaction. It's not about
Yeah.
you. And I like that. The girl evolved, she shifted, she grew.
Hmm.
And the mommy group, I feel like they were the three dogs. I feel like they
Yeah.
were. I feel like
I
they were.
I like that it's ambiguous, and I also want
Yeah.
the answer at the same time.
I do also want the answer.
I want to be
Um,
right, but I also am glad
yeah,
there's no
yeah. It's
answer.
literature. What's the color of the
Yeah.
curtains? How does it make you feel? I'm sitting here like, no, 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 no.
Ugh.
Just give me an answer. I need to know. Just answer the question. That is the
I
question, you know?
I hated that at the party of the herb party, like
Yeah.
obviously Babs and Poppy have names, Jen, who is the head honcho, but then everyone else is also named Jen. And I was like, this again, back to the quote. I was like, what in the world?
Yeah.
And
That's weird.
I think it was that everyone there, because everyone there was like, these herbs and Jen saved my life, like confessional, like just classic MLM if you've ever been to like a Scentsy or a like Lululemon selling party. They all do this.
I've heard
Um,
about those.
ugh, small town Alaska loves MLMs.
But
I've been
even
to
in a
plenty of those.
sorority, but
Oh,
even in a
absolutely.
sorority, and to some
Yeah.
extent, I've have friends who were like they went in one way,
Mhm.
they had a very specific style, and then over time their style began to fade.
And so all these girls are mimicking Jen, which is what I
Yes,
was thinking. So they're all named Jen. So like I liked the metaphor, but again, the bias of not that I go by Jen. I mean, my family calls me Jen, but I don't like tell people to call me Jen. But it's like just so part of my name. I was like,
you felt
I am not
haunted.
like this.
You
How
went, oh
dare you?
no.
No.
That's how I feel when I hear my name in movies. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh,
Hmm.
oh no, no, that's not me. The
Yeah.
original. But I will say this, it almost for me with all women having the same name as Jen, I thought And I asked my mom about this because I really wanted to know. I was
Mhm.
like, why are they all having the same name? Why doesn't the mother have a name? And my mom's like, because your name goes away when you become a mother.
Everyone
Everyone
calls you
calls
mom.
you mom.
Yeah.
And she's like, no one calls you by your first name because it's no longer appropriate. And I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah. And she's like, but even in some marriages, the husband ends up calling his wife, mom for the
Hmm.
sake of the kids when the kids are
Yeah.
around. They don't call the mom, Debbie or Keisha or,
Yeah.
Talia. And, because then they're going to think, I'm going to call my mom by her first name. And some mothers
Hmm.
don't like that. Even some
Yeah.
fathers don't want to be called by their first name by their kid.
Hmm.
So that's why it blew my mind when my mom's like, yeah, your name is kind of gone in the sense of when you're around your children or your spouse
Hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And your friends will even, hey, new mama, hey, and they'll say things like that
Hmm.
and they'll rub your belly, maybe not asking you because they think, well,
Yeah.
you're a mom. It's
Ugh.
cool,
Ugh.
girl. And I'm sitting here, the norms of it all, touching you, wanting to take photos with you, almost Rosemary's Baby, infantilizing you in a way
Yes.
where, like, the ruffles and you dress like your baby, you're wearing the same clothes, your personality begins to,
Hmm.
we're all Jen, we're all
Hmm.
mom, all of us are
Yep.
mom now.
Hmm.
That I just claustrophobic. That party to me
Yes.
felt claustrophobic,
Hmm.
Get me out. Like let
Yes.
me turn into a dog. Let me turn into a corgi. I'll
Yeah.
run. I'll
Yeah.
run with you, girl. Like to get out of
Yeah.
this party, So
And then she goes from the
yeah.
party to like a few scenes later to her like art friend group who are also
Mhm.
working moms. And she talks a lot about like a working mom versus a like what she is, which is a mom that is working at home because
Yeah, a
being a
stay-at-home mom.
mom, a stay-at-home mom is a job, a stay-at-home
It
parenting
is.
is a job. And so, but so she talks a lot about that in this section too, which I think is really important. But like I've heard those
No
conversations
pay,
before.
no
So like,
benefits.
yeah,
It- like
no thank yous because your baby can't say thank you until later on,
and you're trusting your partner to support you.
Hmm.
In this situation, she was trusting her husband with quite a lot.
Yeah.
And she had to have a lot of trust in him. And
Yeah.
she even said, I wonder if when he goes on his trips, does he stay away a little longer? When he
Hmm.
would call and she'd imagine him at the hotel, she's like, is he eating? Are you eating right now? And she'd
Hmm.
imagine him eating like a Sunday and
Hmm.
having a good old time. That's where the mental health came in for me a little bit, was like those intrusive thoughts. You don't actually know
Hmm.
what is going on. But when your
Hmm.
brain is so like everything is wrong, you're lying, you're hiding,
Yeah.
those intrusive thoughts where it's like maybe you are doing A, B, and C when that person probably isn't,
Yeah.
but there's so much resentment and there's
Hmm.
so much isolation that you're kind of in a echo chamber with your own thoughts.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like she was in sometimes when she would discuss the husband, where
Hmm.
she would think he was doing all these things. So we as the reader weren't sure, and she really wasn't either.
Yeah.
So I had to give him that. We weren't sure.
We don't know terribly, which I like the ambiguity. I like
Yeah,
there's a lot of like for as many like run-on sentences and how manic the POV is oftentimes. I like how there's ambiguity all around her. Like she is so unreliable, but also I want to believe everything she says because I
I
want to be on her
did.
side, but I'm
I
also like
did.
but also another part of me is like but also like
You
is
know.
that blonde lady a golden retriever? Mm,
Is
you know?
she also is
But
the golden retriever like all Americana, wholesome, like with the twins and the bedazzled
mhm.
diapers and her
Oh,
outfit?
her house is she wanted it to be castle light, and so it's literally got like a makeup castle, like this McMansion, but
Oh my
also she has
gosh.
a moat around it, which like as a kid, every house I drew up for myself had a moat around it because I thought that'd be so cool. But you know how isolating that house would have to be for a moat? That means there's only one or two entrances in or out of the house. So like even this mom from her house is like
It's
this
isolated.
Jen is I so like I just like how like there's little bits that we get that you can make connections that Nightbitch's experience is not just hers, right?
Yeah.
It's mimicking parts of others. But at the dinner with her artsy friends, they're talking about all their art projects and like not really necessarily about mom stuff. And she's just like blank staring, like they're not talking to me, they're not asking me about
Her
stuff.
kale salad.
Yeah, her friend who prints out Instagram and bigger and sells it for millions. I was like, bleh.
I felt
How
like
dare
that the
you?
whole printing out the Instagram thing, as someone who's a lot with social media, as do you, I was like, oh my God, she's selling an idea. This girl could be
Yeah.
like a target. She
Yeah.
just makes things bigger and then she sells
Hmm.
you this idea and it's so deep and it's so profound.
Hmm.
It's not,
It's not.
who claims what is art?
Yeah.
Art's what you're calling this
Hmm.
art. Okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
That's where the weird girl element also came in for me. Her
Hmm.
friends were assholes. Like they weren't
Yes.
fucking nice people, but she
Yeah.
just wanted to save that part of her life. She still wanted to see if she could fit in with her grad student friends.
The remnants of her old life. And like all of her friends are like videographers and successful and making
Yeah.
millions with their art. And she's like, I'm at home. No one's paying attention to me. She flips the table at the restaurant. Love. I like that just like
Fuck
makes me
yeah.
anxious. I would never do that, but like the idea of
In
it,
the
so
sake of a book,
satisfying.
in a
Yeah.
fictional world.
Yeah. And then she
Yeah.
runs out and ends up killing a raccoon, rodents, and a bunny,
Mhm.
assuming she's a dog. We don't really know.
We assume. We
We
assume.
assume.
She does reference like breaking their necks with like her paw or her hand.
Yeah.
In that situation, I was like, is this about wanting to seek control? You just want control. You know what I mean?
It's
You
like
feel out of
rage, it's
control.
control, it's like
Yes.
wanting to be violent because like she talks
Yeah.
also about how like motherhood is violent because you start with the most violent act, which is
Mhm.
like g giving birth, and literally being ripped in two, and if you don't give birth vaginally and you end up getting a C-section, you have someone else cutting you open, moving your guts around, getting, your baby
And
out.
they
So
put them
like
back. And
yeah,
they put and they had to rearrange. Yep.
and then you have to be like
Yep.
calm and docile and calm with the
Yep.
baby. And so it's like I like that. Like
That
the
sense.
yes, it's
The
so
visual, but it's
I love
real.
it.
And she just
Yeah.
mentioned like, oh, someone with a cloak comes in, it takes your organs out, takes out the baby, this babe, and then puts
Mm-hmm.
your organs back in. The librarian, the
Mm-hmm.
librarian was one of my favorite characters who is like, she's like, I remember having a son. It was so fun. And then when she walks away, um, the mother character is like, you had a son? Tell me your secrets. What's he like now? Is your
Mm-hmm.
relationship good? All these
Mm-hmm.
questions. To me, that one scene was the perfect description of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
You get a glimpse of something good, and your first thought is 50 what ifs, and three, I would like this to happen. I don't know how I'm gonna get there. I'm scared.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the what ifs. This cycle. Once again, we're back in the echo chamber. We got a moment to see someone else who's
Yep.
relating to us, and then she's gone, and now you're back with yourself, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
super stressed out. And that's one with
Yeah.
anxiety. I was like, damn, girl,
Mm-hmm.
you actually wrote that pretty well. Even the party, I was like, the art with her friends, her art friends, I use this very loosely, she was still so alone.
Mm-hmm.
And she ends up
Absolutely.
seeing a girl getting who's engaged. She takes her burger, like
Yeah.
she there's a craving for meat throughout the book, the
Yep.
marbling of meat, and she takes this girl's burger, gives that shit back to her, and runs, kills the
Yeah.
bunny, goes home, and she finds her
And
little
freaks out
baby, freaks out.
and she kills the cat.
Yeah,
And the cat's been there like throughout the story. She talks about her and her husband joke that they both hate this cat because it
yeah,
meows and like it gets poop stuck on its hind legs, which is funny because I had to just deal with my cat having poop on her. She has long hair, so it happens
no.
sometimes. Well,
I'm
by
so
me
grateful.
dealing
My
it,
cat has short hair, so I'm like sitting here. I'm like blessed.
I
I don't
held, I
have to
held,
clean your poop.
I held the cat, and then my boyfriend just cut the hair that the poop was attached to, so it wasn't that bad.
That sucks so bad.
She has to get hind leg haircuts from us all frequently. Anyways,
Wow.
TMI about my cat. Sorry,
That's
Pesto.
life, though. Twas life.
It
I mean, we
is.
all clean litter. If you have pets, you're either picking up poop if you have a dog, or
Yep.
you're cleaning litter if you have a
Yep.
cat. Shit is
Yep.
shit. Like you have to deal with
Yep.
it either way. But it's the same thing with motherhood. In this book,
Yeah.
the diaper, so many references to the diaper and it being soggy. For anyone
Hmm.
who's ever had to take care of a kid,
Ugh.
for anyone who's ever take care of a kid, like, and then she described her son. I could just imagine the diaper, the
Hmm.
rashes, the cream, the crying, the cycle. And before
Yeah.
you know it, 2 years, 3 years have gone by.
Yeah.
Yeah, I 100%
Hmm.
understood, and I felt her exhaustion throughout the entire.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
exhausted, which is
Yeah.
valid. Even as a
Hmm.
dog, that's the only time she's free. When she goes back to the house, it's always at night,
Hmm.
and she like checks the door and everything. She goes into the bathroom, she kills the cat. Um, it was just so, like, you're right, manic. It,
Yeah.
it just felt like
Hmm.
a fever dream when she
Hmm.
got back home.
The killing of the cat, like I saw that coming from the beginning. As soon as they were talking about how they hated the cat, I was like, oh, she's a
Mhm.
dog. She's gonna kill the cat, like we had there's that, that trope, whatever. But what got me is that the fact that it happened in the middle of the day when her son was like in the next room playing with his trains or whatever. And he comes in and like there's like it's described as like blood everywhere in the kitchen. And then the baby comes in, or the boy comes in and like starts like touching the like dead stuff, and it was like, can we eat it? Because she's been feeding him
Oh
and I was
no.
like, that's that part. I was like, ugh. That's like
Ah,
the squeamishy most of
the
this book. The rest of
his
it's
innocence,
tolerable.
because he's so innocent, he
Yeah,
doesn't understand. And he
and
trusts
he,
his mom to show him the way.
this is the
Yeah.
part, beginning of part three is when she's having this realization, and she's like, oh shit, did I just fuck up my son for
Yeah.
life? Yeah, which is like, ma'am, you've been feeding him raw meat. That is not
A
like,
genuine question. But even good
yeah,
parents have the I did
yeah,
ask my
yeah,
dad that question. I was like, what are your
mhm,
thoughts about, have you ever thought, did you mess things up? And my dad
yeah,
was like, he's like, only good parents ask ourselves if we've
mhm,
messed things up. Only good
yeah,
parents question,
hmm,
long term, am I making
hmm,
quite the right decisions? So when the husband references our son in the bed, and with the dog bed and the collar, and
hmm,
if anything goes wrong, if he gets bullied, it's on you.
yep.
That was for me the last fucking straw.
And then that's when she finally says, you're right, it is on me.
Yeah, it's
She
always
just
been on
says
me.
it. Yeah.
It's all
And
on
then,
me.
and that's like where the scene ends. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's a good, like, yeah.
That she said it just I I cannot wait for you to watch the movie, because there's a scene that's very similar.
Hmm.
And it's a lot where the book alludes, the film is a
Hmm.
lot more direct.
Yeah.
A lot more direct. But at least in this situation, in this book, I liked how she also references flashbacks to her mother throughout
Hmm.
part one, part two, and part three.
Hmm.
I don't remember if this part was in part one or part three. I think it was near the middle to the end, where she references her mother
Hmm.
and having this dream of her mother laying in the grass. She and the mother is a child now, main
Hmm.
character's a child. She goes to her mother in the grass. She remembers seeing her mom like run into the grass, lay in the grass, cry in the grass, listen to
Hmm.
music on the radio. Um, and she asks her mom, "Why are you crying?" And her mom says, "I'm not crying. I'm tired. Go back to bed."
Hmm.
And it's very, once again, we're back to, in the the main character's mother's case, exhaustion,
Hmm.
isolation, even generations back.
Yeah.
So it shows that she finally has the opportunity now to possibly change things.
Hmm.
It requires her looking at her past, and she's like, why does this keep popping up? And
Hmm.
I'm like, girl, you know that you're in a similar position, you
Yeah.
know even
Generational
your
trauma.
husband. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
she barely mentions her
Hmm.
father. She barely
Yeah.
mentions her father in the book.
Hmm.
Barely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was
I,
interesting.
yeah, definitely. And I like that as in going in a the third chapter or the third act or chunk, whatever.
Yeah.
She starting to be like, okay, I now know that without Night Bitch, I am miserable and isolated and I hate everything except for the boy.
Yes.
But then with Night Bitch, I love what me and the boy can do. I love the freedom, but also I know that it has extreme consequences. So the third
Yes.
act is her like trying to figure out a balance. And she like talks, the third act is her trying to figure out happiness, is like what I kind of like, you can summarize it. Like she talks about it, like she's unhappy and then she's like ecstatic. And now she's trying to find that balance of like emotional control, some like acts of like emotional rage with Night Bitch, but in appropriate ways, like running.
In controlled settings.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so she starts trying to actively do that. Like this is when the boy starts going to bed without fighting. She starts talking
Mhm.
about becoming a monster instead of Night Bitch or a mother, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, I
Um,
get that.
and this is when Jen's like, "Oh, you're boho," and I love it. Like it's that whole thing when I'm like, boho is like what an early 2000s word.
Damn, girl. Well, also boho I know is short for bohemian.
Uh-huh.
I'm bohemian, but even
Hmm.
people reference it as a style. So like
Hmm.
your boho, it's a style. For
Yeah.
me, it was very similar to people reference like granola moms.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or like there's certain terms that come out which I'm
Yeah.
low key like, oh, you mean like earthy people? You know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah.
she's earthy, you
Yeah.
know? Different term, different era, same
Yeah.
concept. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did like at least that with Mother, in reference to being boho, I took it as her
Hmm.
being more free flowing.
Yes, that's where she's wearing linen, but also she's like
Yeah.
she starts going to the mall and like starts like buying like leather. Oh, I wrote it down somewhere. She like I, it's a part like towards the end when she's
Mhm.
like becoming more herself. Let me find it. I wrote so much in my book, which is wonderful when
Yes.
I like reread it, but like trying to find where it is, I didn't do any
I
like
make notes
tabs.
in my phone
Woo.
as well when I read books, and I
Hmm.
annotate, like I'll get stickers and sticky notes within the book if I get a physical copy.
Yeah.
Um, I get, like I said, pacing from near the middle to the end was a little bit slow. I do feel like this book could have been a novella. I do
Hmm.
feel like it could have been around 120, 150. And in no way is this me poo-pooing on the book. The book was not by any means bad.
No,
It's just that I feel like I would have loved for her to
I can't find
part
it.
two, I feel like dragged a little bit. And when part
Yes.
three, it was a lot more poetic and
Yeah.
a lot more artistic. Part one
Hmm.
was more direct. Part two was dragging on. Part three
Hmm.
was poetic, metaphorical, more the gray area, getting a little
Yeah.
funky with it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
At one
Even the
point,
art exhibit element was a little bit
hmm
funky.
yeah, she like as like she's like getting towards the end of part three, she, she's indulging in her like wants. She buys like faux leather, but also real leather. And I was like, okay, faux leather is her wanting to be a dog. She starts
Yes.
covering the mirrors with like pelts and stuff. So like she doesn't look at herself and her image, but also what she when she does like go to like look at herself in the mirror, she sees fur. So she is reflecting the night bitch part of her, which I thought was really
Mhm.
fun. She at one point they're out playing at the park, her and the boy, and they go like hardcore like dog games, like she's chasing kids around and
Yes,
like
at the
just being a
playground.
dog until like dark. And then one day her and the boy go to the dog park and to see like what dogs are there, that she sees the three dogs that
Hmm.
we suspect are the three moms. But then she also sees this older woman that she's like, oh, this is who I would think, how I would think Wanda would look like,
Yeah.
the author. And so she goes and runs towards Wanda and quote, Wanda runs into the woods. We don't know if Wanda's real. Like, we're like, okay,
I
like we
didn't
don't
know if
know.
Wanda, I thought Wanda was the librarian
Hmm.
because the book was found there. And
Yeah.
obviously that's where books are found. But in my mind, I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
we later found out near the end of the book, Wanda wasn't affiliated with a certain college that we thought she was.
Yeah.
She wouldn't respond to any of the emails.
Hmm.
She was very lucrative online. In my mind, I'm
It's
like,
like, does she exist?
does she exist? But also the more of the book was published, so we know that
Hmm.
she existed enough to write the book and for it to get more publicity after the art
Hmm.
exhibit, which we'll later reference. But
Hmm.
I thought maybe Wanda could have been a compilation of either all three women who wrote the
Hmm.
book at one point, or the librarian who also
Yeah.
referenced having a son and remembering the good times.
Yeah. I
So
didn't
I don't
think
know.
about that part. Yeah,
I'm not
it's a
sure.
mystery.
She could be
I like the
anyone.
mystery.
I like
Yeah.
that.
And then the mother slash night bitch goes and talks to Jen. And uh, Jen like breaks down and admits that she's like wasted like over like 10,000 plus dollars to the herb business, and she's scared to tell her husband. And then night bitch is like, "Are you the golden retriever?" And she's like, what? No, like she doesn't like say no, but she's like just like dismisses it in a
Yeah.
weird way. And she's like overwhelmed. She's like, I need help. And she tells the night bitch, like, you have everything together. And so here's the person who the whole time in the book, the mother is like, she has everything together. She, her hair is done, her twins are well behaved and dressed and have cute hair, etc., etc. And then here's that lady being like breaking down and being like, I need your help.
Yeah.
And then the night bitch is like, okay, I'm going to show you the night bitch project, is what she calls it. Like she refers to her art project throughout this to her art friends, to her husband, to be
Yes.
like, this is what I'm working on.
I
But
have an
then,
idea.
yeah, exactly. And it turns into that. And then Jen says, oh, it's you. And so we're like, okay, is Jen having, so like either two things. Is Jen the golden retriever doing those actions? Or is Jen having the same situation flip-flopped where now Night Bitch is like the lead of those three coming to her, like what is
Chicken or the
it?
egg. But for me,
Yeah.
that's where the only thing with the timeline gets funky because the three dogs were there
Hmm.
pretty early on
Yeah.
when Mother was transforming. So
Hmm.
if Mother was the catalyst for them to transform, how is that possible? If the three women were already there in their dog form, Mother becomes a dog.
Yeah.
They offer her things. In
Yeah.
theory, I wonder if the three women stuck together out of just necessity and
Like maybe
saw
they're
that
looking
Night
for the
Bitch was
alpha.
free. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
Nightbitch was the alpha. She just
Yeah.
needed someone to kind of, I thought, to push I thought they were pushing her
Hmm.
to acknowledge her true self so she could
Yeah.
lead them because she didn't have any
Yeah.
shame. Versus for them, I feel like they had
They
shame.
still have the shame. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
They still carry
Yeah.
that. Versus for her, pretty quickly, she was like,
Hmm.
fuck this. Left the art group,
Hmm.
embraced things with her son. They weren't able to, we didn't see them embrace certain things with their children versus she was very quick to do that.
Hmm.
We don't know their relationships with their spouses.
Yeah.
No, Nightbitch was isolated and she
Hmm.
freed herself. All
Hmm.
she needed was that offering from the other women to say, you're not alone. She only ever needed a signal and she kept begging for a signal,
Yeah.
but she was also kind of blocking friendship. I
Yeah.
won't be friends with you. You're just a group of moms. I won't be friends with my art group. They really know me. Actually, they
Hmm.
don't know who I am right now. She couldn't really find her place. She had to
Yeah.
free herself. She really did.
That last thing with her and the husband, that I think, because before she ends up turning Night Bitch into a project, she's like, she her husband gets home and she just gives the baby and is like, you're doing nighttime on the weekends now.
Hmm.
And he's like, okay. And she's like, fuck, I could have just demanded and you would have
Yeah.
done it. Which I'm like, yes, this man would have done anything you said. You could tell that from the beginning. You just had to actually do it because he has no like
Agency.
energy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he needed to be led. And they do mention that
Yes.
in the book. They mention
Mm-hmm.
a concept of a mother, the mothers who disappear, the
Mm-hmm.
mothers who were, the women who were the birds,
Yeah.
and
The
then the
were
women who were like
mothers.
the alphas. It was something about
Yeah.
that where like if she,
Yeah.
the author was like, I pray for her children and her husband because she's gonna
Yeah.
lead them with like an iron fist.
Yeah.
Um, sometimes people want and need to be
To
led.
be,
I
yeah.
had to learn that. But yeah, some
Yeah.
women where people say like, I feel so bad for her husband, and oh my God, that person must be very happy to be there because it's a
Yeah.
mutual agreement. It takes
Yeah.
two to tango. It's an
And,
agreement,
and
you
this
know?
like she has this revelation where she's like, this whole time I've been struggling by myself. And like,
Yes,
yes, he should have offered, absolutely. And
I agree.
she does recognize there in the book too. She's like, yeah, he should have done that. Like I shouldn't have had to be in the situation without,
Any
me.
support.
Exactly. But she's like, but also I'm mad at myself because I could have just asked
Yeah.
sooner. But then she ends up smelling that like a bunny or something that she had buried a while ago in the yard. And so she goes and like is dog form, like digging it out and like wanting to roll in it. Then her husband comes out and like acknowledges that she is the dog. And like then he turns into the dog as well. And then they have sex out there. But it's just like I think right there, like I agree with everything you've said about like the husband throughout. Like, yes,
Mhm.
he like was not a good partner. He is absent. He's not a good father, like all this. But then here, he's just like, oh, you are this. I accept you. I'm going to be like you to be with you. And like, so like it's like this weird where this book like dissects a lot of like motherhood and femininity and like has a
Mhm.
like a feminist themes.
Yeah.
Like part of taking down the patriarchy is also like helping men break their toxic masculinity. And like we
Yeah.
don't see much of him, so we don't know how toxic his masculinity is
That's
necessarily,
true.
right? But
That's
I think
true.
here, I don't think he's like just like I don't think he's like blameless because he still has a lot to make up for it, absolutely. But I think
Yeah.
here, like you see a switch in him where it's like, oh, also going to be there now. I think more than he was at least. Maybe not perfectly. Lots of long ways to go because he's still, I agree,
Yeah.
still has red flags. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Husband in the book versus husband in the film,
Hmm.
very different men.
Okay.
I'm excited in the next episode to dive into the
Mm,
differences because I
yes.
will say this, could not stand husband in the book.
Yeah.
I actually loved husband in the film. I did. He was
Okay.
not perfect, but his flaws made sense. Like
Yeah.
they made more sense. He
Yeah.
spoke more and it was
Gotcha.
helpful. Versus in the book,
Yes.
it was just he didn't speak that much. So I just felt
No.
actions were giving off like a fuck you to her.
Yeah.
In the movie,
That's
at least,
understandable.
we do get to see there's a certain level of him not being aware,
Yeah.
him having a little bit of resentment of his own,
Hmm.
miscommunications, views of desexualizing a woman because she had a child.
Yeah.
You do A, B, and C. You became my mom. Certain things he says where I
Yeah.
was like, okay, say it, get it out. Hear
Hmm.
how stupid you sound, and then let's unpack that. You know what I mean? Let's unpack. It's not her responsibility to educate him by any means, but I agree. I think part of feminism is I can give you the tools to free
Hmm.
yourself. I can give you bullet points on why this was not
Yeah.
right and why it's hurtful. Then it's his responsibility or their responsibility to unpack that
Yeah.
for themselves and then work on that. But it's not our responsibility to
No.
necessarily free them. It's only
Yeah.
our responsibility to give them the tools and say, this is hurtful, this is harmful. If you
Hmm.
continue, you're doing A, B, and C, and then
Hmm.
it's their choice to either continue or to move forward in a healthy
Yeah.
way. And I
Yeah.
do think that husband in the book, at least, I did like his transformation for me was more
Hmm.
so of a healing of the marriage and an acceptance of
Of the
that primal
relationship.
part of her.
Yeah.
Yes. And also the fact that she had to ask him.
Hmm.
Um, there is also a moment in the movie that I love. I wish had been in the book. I've never said that before, but I wish it was,
Hmm.
where it's the whole concept of I'm babysitting my children. I'll watch the kids. I'll babysit the kids. It's your child. So it's no longer babysitting. It's your
Yeah.
child, you
Hmm.
know? Take agency, take responsibility for what you helped create. And
Yeah.
just like the quote she said, we decided to make a baby. We decided a certain path. It ultimately was our decision as a team.
Hmm.
You can't babysit what you created. It's like saying, "Oh, I'll go wash my car and put gas in it." I'm a great person. It's your car. You know what I mean? You wash your car. You bought
Yeah.
your car. Like
Hmm.
you want to get a pat on the back for taking care of your car. It's the same thing with it
Yeah.
sounds horrible, but it's
No.
your kid. You want to get a pat on the back for cleaning the booty of the kid you made, like
Yeah.
feeding and
No.
helping your kid. Like, oh my gosh, you want a gold star? She did this for 2 years nonstop. He says, "Okay, I'll help." I'm so sorry. It would have taken a lot more for me to be like, he's amazing. Go, Greg,
No.
go.
Abs.
It
Yeah.
was definitely a start. His name was not
Yeah.
Greg, but I'm just saying it's a start.
It's definitely like a start,
Yeah, it was a
but
good start. Yeah, I
yeah.
agree. Give him a
But
little something. Yeah, it was a good
I
start.
think it's interesting that he turned into a dog. And that part, I'm like, it's not just like I accept her. It's like, oh, now we're in this together. And I'm
I
like, does
liked when
that?
she was just a dog. I
I
wanted
know, no,
Nightbitch to be her own dog. I don't
but like,
know.
then this part where I'm like, okay, are they actually dogs, or is it more of like the
Mm,
emotional? Or is he
the
meeting her in
metaphor.
this emotional, yeah, metaphorical state? So I don't know. But then we
Yeah.
get the first performance with all the moms.
Hmm.
And I thought so the first like there's a meet out on there. There's no one performing for a long time and all these moms are getting wine drunk and then the dog comes up and like eats the meat and then half the women start like walking on all fours and like barking and half the women start screaming and running and it's pandemonium.
And we know the
And
ones who run aren't really, you know,
yeah.
they're
Yeah.
either not at the phase to be night bitches or they
Hmm.
have not accepted that part of themselves and have not been able to transform.
Yeah. I but the two that specifically stay are her art friends who like
Hmm.
start like crying and stuff because they're we know their moms because of that whole conversation of working moms versus working at
Yeah.
home moms. But they also like the art stuff and so they're like finally seeing their friends' art through this. So I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting. And like they're crying probably partially because for their friend, but a lot for themselves. But I liked the like pandemonium and screaming because like sometimes when you like see what you could be or should be or want to be, it's so shocking to you that
Yeah.
you like your first reaction is like freeze, fight, um, flight. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so I feel like
You're
I really
shocked.
like that. Yeah, they're
You're shocked. Yeah.
like that's me. I can't be me. I want to be that. What? No, running. Right? That's like
Exactly. Or
yeah.
so the ones who ran, I felt like it was definitely giving like denial. I'm
Yes.
not like that. This is crazy. I'm just super drunk. Denial. The ones who
Mm-hmm.
were crying, I agree. I maybe it was like empathy. They
Mm-hmm.
themselves could not transform, but they wanted to.
Yeah.
No, or maybe they were burnt out from work. We have to
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge this, maybe a sense of being burnt out, feeling used by their job and by their own creations, feeling
Mm-hmm.
pulled in all directions, being constantly tired and having a financial responsibility as well. Maybe they weren't in a position where their husbands could,
Mm-hmm.
cover and they had no choice. And that was also a certain sense of sadness of feeling trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Which I felt that's where I felt the tears were coming from for at least for me, where I was like, maybe they didn't have partners who could necessarily carry the financial weight, and
Yeah.
therefore they had no choice but to
Yeah.
continue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's also an element. I think that the dog standing on the stage and allowing themselves to be seen in this way, I just felt like, wow, this is the epitome of acceptance.
Yes.
Self-accept. You guys can run, you guys can cry, it's chaos, but I'm here. This is what I
Hmm.
look like. This is what my body looks like at this point in my life. I'm not running. I'm not changing. I'm not squeezing. This
Hmm.
is me. Like this is
Hmm.
how I look. Feel how
Yes.
you want to feel. You know what I mean? And I
Hmm.
like that. I
I
like that acceptance.
I really like that. Yeah. And then after that, which like I think would have been a good ending, they
Mhm.
have the extra performance, which like I liked parts of it, but also
Yeah.
it felt like a lot to me.
The bones
So it's
moving.
like yeah, so it's like later on she now has the Night Bitch performance, which is like getting a lot of attention and for good and bad. But it's she is naked with fur and acting like a dog. So it's here it's
Hmm.
described as her the person with
Yes.
fur and acting like a dog. Then there's bunnies everywhere. Then there's the golden bones acting like marionettes, turning into different animals. Then she kills
Yes.
a bunny with her mouth and then chases the audience. And then they have also been given the herbs. So they
Yes.
either will see the creatures that she has read about, so the bird ladies, the were mothers, the
Like
disappearing moms, etc.
hallucinations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it alludes to a
Hmm.
hallucinogenic experience.
Yeah, and the herbs is called the howl pill that is like heavily encouraged for them to take. But then if they stay after that, if they don't get chased out in their like hallucinogenic haze, they see the mom handing the bunny to her
Mhm.
son. Um, and I think that performance in general, I think you could probably connect each part with a
A
different part
lot
of
of
the book,
metaphors.
a lot of
Sure.
metaphors, but
There's
like
music I know as well. There was a musical
mhm,
element as well, which I
yes,
thought alluded to her mom.
the dramatic stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it might have
Yeah.
alluded to her mom a little bit.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, we can always dive into all the metaphors, but I also think there's something to be said for simplicity.
Hmm.
Sometimes it is what it is.
Yeah.
The last sentence being tied to her son
Hmm.
and like this ray of light, like her love for her son.
Yeah.
I thought it was beautiful, but at the same
Hmm.
time, it made me a little sad
Hmm.
because still the last sentence of the story wasn't even about her,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know? So that
Yeah.
was my only thing where I was like, I if it's gonna be about you, let it be about you. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like it takes a certain level of bravery to stand there and be like, nope, the story's about Night Bitch, about me. But a very element of who she was, a part of her body,
Hmm.
an organ living outside of her is her child,
Yes. Yeah.
you know? So he is kind of he's a major part of her story. So
Yeah.
I'm torn a little bit about that last
Hmm.
sentence. I was like,
Yeah.
hmm.
Like I like that she found success back in art and a balance we're assuming
Mhm.
in motherhood and in her professional life and her creative life. But I do agree. It was like almost too much. Like this book, like you said it before, should have been novella. And I think absolutely like I
Yeah.
loved this book and I'll probably rate it 5 stars, but I don't think it's perfect by any means. I think the middle is too long. But the repetition though, it does mimic her like her mental like how she is mentally like she's living that like groundhog's day effect like so as we're reading it stuff happens over and over and over and I think that's
Yeah.
purposeful but I do think it needs at least one more major revision. um
Agreed.
but I was reading and this so Rachel Yoder um has an MFA in fiction and an MFA in nonfiction, which I think
Oh,
you can
wow.
tell as you write this. I have found this interview. I'll put it in the show notes, but also I'll send you the link. It's a
Yeah.
really cool interview, but she talks about how she had not written anything for 2 years before starting this project because of her own motherhood journey. And she
Mm.
didn't write this to become a manuscript or anything. She read like a short essay that she mentions in the interview and she got inspired by that and she just kind of like therapeutically just started writing this.
Oh,
Um and she did not mean for it to actually be a novel at first. She just wanted it, but the first bit of what she wrote, which was essentially the first part of this book, ended up being too long for a short story. So then she continued it.
okay.
Yeah, so which you can kind of tell. And she even mentions in the article that she wishes she had one more major revision to go through.
Okay.
So I was like,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
All right.
But I really I really enjoyed this book. I liked how messy it was. And she also talks in that interview how she like as someone she's like, as someone with 2 MFAs, I hate when people are snobs about art and writing. So I wrote this book to be messy on purpose. I wanted it to feel manic on purpose because that's what I was feeling. And I think art should be accessible to everyone at some level, right?
Wow.
And
Okay,
so
that gives a lot of clarification.
that's why she makes her art friends like super like assholes, is because she's like they're like super high art snobs, and she's like, you
Yeah.
printed out Instagram.
Let's I think at least the self-awareness, I will give it that. I
Yeah.
gave this book probably like a I feel I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
But then I did see the film shortly after, and it was the
Hmm.
first time in my life I've ever seen a film and been like, I liked this more
I'm
than the
excited.
book. And I
Yeah.
was like, nah, I felt like there was a lot more like like I wanted her
Hmm.
to not leave room for discussion. I wanted her to see her husband feeling guilty. Let him feel guilty. Let him.
Hmm.
Like there were certain lines crossed that I feel like in the book she never really like got on him. Like that's
Hmm.
not okay. In the movie, she let it sit, and I just felt like there was a certain level of like that real animal instinct of like it's not personal,
Hmm.
but if I have to choose between you and me, I'm choosing myself and my
Hmm.
child. That's what I got. I needed that like
Yeah.
like don't be scared to get angry, don't be scared to get weird. Like
Hmm.
womanhood is nothing to be ashamed of. Like growing hair in certain parts of your body, your upper lip, between your eyes,
Hmm.
like your legs, wherever. This is 100% natural.
Hmm.
There's no reason to be ashamed. Gaining weight, after having a baby, before,
Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
sorts of stuff. I just felt like there was a lot of like a lot more vulnerability and a lot more. If anything, if the book was a second edit, the
Hmm.
movie felt like the final
The
draft.
final draft. Gotcha.
I will say that. The movie
I'm
felt like a
excited.
final, like a very
Hmm.
clean, this made sense. We only have an hour, and I like writing down the time. So we only had an hour and 39 minutes. The audiobook was 8 hours. An hour and 39 minutes was able to sum up an entire story in a pretty clear and
I
concise way.
feel 8 hours for this book seems wild because it's 230
Eight
pages.
hours. Yeah, it was 8 hours. That was on like regular speed. And then
Yeah.
the movie length is an hour and 39 minutes. The
Yeah.
movie, I did not feel the time. When it ended, I could have
Hmm.
probably done more. If they
Yeah.
added another 20 minutes and we got to see like a little blooper where it was the three dogs transform,
Hmm.
I would have stayed. If this was in the theaters, I would have stayed. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I think that's the only thing with both the movie and the film and the
Hmm.
book is that I wish it was a lot clearer that the
Yeah.
women were the three dogs. I do.
Hmm.
And that's my only thing with if we're gonna get weird, I would prefer
Hmm.
for us to get weird.
Yeah.
Like if there's another book if we ever do another episode together, I
Hmm.
would love to read Bunny. I heard
Hmm.
that book is a
I've
little
heard
weird.
that's I've heard that's also weird.
I've always wanted to read it,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to read it alone. So now I'm
Yeah.
sitting here and I'm like, if you ever want to do something again, we should definitely
Yeah.
read Bunny because I heard like if you're gonna get into weird stuff,
It's a weird girl lit.
I think the girls call each other Bunny. It's like three
Yeah.
girls, they all call each other Bunny, and I'm like,
Weird.
but I wonder if it's like babe, like it's like a term where like girls use
Yeah.
it where they're like, girl, please, like
Yeah.
bitch, whatever. Like it's I wonder if it's like
If it's
that,
like that. Yeah.
But yes, I do think the ending of this book, I think if it had just ended on the first art
The first.
installation,
Hmm.
I would have been okay with that.
Yeah.
Even if I had to rewrite the ending, oh, that's a good question. If you could rewrite the ending to this
Hmm.
book,
Hmm.
what would happen?
I think, I mean, honestly, I would just think get out that the second performance. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily end at the end of that performance, but like, she could add some more like clarity of like where she
Mm.
is now. Like she could say, it wouldn't have to be like, oh, I'm perfect now, because like Nightbitch is specifically not perfect on purpose, like, but like
I
have like
agree.
some sort of like summarization of all the themes, you know? That's what, or even just like a quick scene about her saying bye to the husband as she goes
Mm.
on like an activity just by herself, and like
Okay.
feeling no guilt, like something small, like a little
Yes.
time, like I'm talking like 3 paragraphs max,
Yes, I
you
hear
know?
you.
Yeah.
I see you and I hear you. I'm gonna go off the hills, okay?
Yes.
I had to end this book. I would have ended it with the last conversation she had with the husband
Hmm.
and her pretty much saying that she's gonna pursue this part of her life.
Hmm.
Him seeing her transform into a dog, her turning around and being able to transform into a human and communicate, this is who
hmm
I am. You're either with this or you're not.
hmm
And I think something needs to change.
hmm
And instead of him turning into a dog, I would have had him as a man kind of bow down to her or to acknowledge her in a way where it's like, I accept this part of you.
hmm
And I don't want him, I wouldn't have had him turn into a dog because that's only for her. That was part of
Yeah.
her. After that, I would have had the art installation, the three women turn into dogs as well. They're all part of the
hmm
art. And then the last part, I probably would have had her running as a dog and then her son as a puppy running along
Oh.
her. So it's almost like that breaking that cycle where her mom was laying in the grass and she was alone
hmm
versus I would rather have had the mom running in the dark and the son
hmm
as a puppy running along with her. They're both of them embracing. It's
Yeah.
okay to be natural. It's okay to make mistakes. I will
hmm
always protect you. I will always be here for you. And then
hmm
maybe the dad picking up the puppy, bringing him inside and letting the mom run on her own at night. And
Yeah.
then three dogs. I would have
Yeah.
had that be the end. I would have had that be the end.
That'd
You know
be
what
a
I mean?
cute ending. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like Night Bitch can be wholesome, I guess. And I would
Yeah.
have had something like a fun song in the background, like I don't know, like Cherry Bomb or something. Something chaotic and messy. Like I would have had that, you know? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like for
Yeah.
sure. I and like all the women like in a van after like in a mom van, drinking wine and like talking about their
hmm
lives and stuff and like just, chilling. Like
Yeah.
I would have had that, but
Yeah.
it's like Witches of Eastwick a little bit. Like I would have had like the vibe. The girls are just like it's a girl vibe, girl
hmm
dinner, the bunnies, girl dinner. It would have
Gross, the
been
dead
like that.
raccoon rotting girl dinner.
That's so
Ugh.
messed up, but it's girl math, girl math. If we have one art installation and three dead bunnies, what happens now? But that's like it's dark and it's messy and it's fucked
Yeah.
up. But like motherhood, girlhood, it's like we have our periods. Some people
hmm
think that's disgusting. It's normal. It's that blood is
hmm
part of our lives. Like,
Yep.
like breastfeeding. It's for someone to describe it as painful. Like these are things that
hmm
people don't want to talk about, but they're 100%
Yep.
natural. Come here, guy. But they're 100% natural and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So and we're so nurturing. People think it's triggering when women aren't naturally instinctually like let me take care of you. They see
hmm
us as the red flags when we say no. And that's my
hmm
thing is like how are we scary for saying no, for being tired, for saying I think you should do this instead.
Yeah.
So now we're the monsters.
Yeah.
We're go against our nature. I would have loved to see an ending where it says like a fuck you to that. You know what I mean?
hmm
And like let's run with the wolves, girl. Like let's
Yeah.
go. Like the guy can take care of it. It'll be okay. So yeah, I
Yeah.
would have loved to see that. But you know what?
hmm
Maybe in the movie there's something different happens. I don't know. I don't know. That's what the next episode will be about. I'm like
I
I'm holding on to the seams so seriously, like, waiting for you to see the movie. I'm like, oh my God, just go see it. One
yeah.
of my favorite movies of the year already. It's like it was
Amazing.
really good. I actually had a
I'm
really good
excited.
time. So
I'm
yes, I hope you
excited.
like it. It's on Hulu. People who are
Yes.
listening, if you want to watch it, I know it's on Hulu. So yeah,
Yes. It's on Hulu.
but
Yeah.
yes, this
I'm
episode was amazing.
I'm excited. I again, I liked this book. It's not for everyone, but I think there's a
No.
lot of good stuff in it for sure. It just like it turned on that English major part of my brain, and I was like, I'm going to analyze this. I'm sitting there like,
What does that mean with the guy? He's got all the papers and the red string, and he's like, I have a theory. That's
literally me reading on the couch yesterday, just like
it
my
all
cat's
connects.
sitting on my lap, like, what are
It
you
all
doing? And I'm
connects.
like, it howled. I
Yes.
have to underline howl.
I think that Nightbitch was trying to give a similar vibe as this book. This book
The
was
tender of the
only
flesh.
yes. So the no, it was Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valente. I will message it
Hmm
to you. Um, it is, I think, considered a novella. It's
Yeah.
really short. And I read this last year. It's 112 pages. It's short. And it's
Okay.
an audiobook as well. It's only
Okay.
112 pages.
Cool.
When I tell you, I think Night Bitch, when you're saying like we're saying, oh, let's get weird, but keep it
hmm
short
hmm
and have the message be very deep. Comfort Me with Apples gave that. And
Yeah.
I think that's the only reason I couldn't give Night Bitch like a 4 or 5 star because
Yeah.
another book that could
Absolutely.
do
Yeah.
that and like super short.
Yeah. This is the
Um,
first like weird, quote, weird book that I've read outside of my English degree, which was
okay.
7+ years ago. So like
Um,
it's been a while since I've been back into like weird things are happening book. So like,
Mm.
we'll see. But
Listen, I hope you
yeah,
read it. If you do
I'm
circle back, I think you'll get like if Night Bitch was like a white wine, Comfort Me with
mhm.
Apples is like a cognac. It's
Ooh.
deeper, it's smoky, it feels like it came from something ancient. Like it feels like
Ooh.
whoever wrote this had like a bad dream and then wrote a short story about it. That's what Comfort Me with Apples feels like. Night Bitch feels like a bad trip. You know what I mean? A
Okay,
bad
okay.
trip when you have
Yeah.
postpartum. That's what that's what it feels like, a mutual bad dream. But it Comfort Me with Apples felt like, it felt definitely deeper, darker. And
Yeah.
if you've ever liked analyzing myth,
Hmm.
if you've ever wanted to analyze like Dante's Inferno,
Hmm.
Comfort Me with Apples gives very interesting like religious
Okay.
vibes and like womanhood and like what identity means and creation means. It was
Cool.
so good. And it was so short. Oh, I
Yeah.
read that book all the time. So I
I'll have to
think
pick it up.
if you like Night Bitch, I would also recommend Comfort Me with Apples. Different authors, but
Hmm.
definitely weird girl vibes. So
Cool.
yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
It was such a fun episode. I can't wait to do the
Yeah.
movie episode.
Yeah.
What?
Thank you, Alyssa,
Yeah.
for joining. And again, go follow Alyssa on Instagram at
It's at
Spoilers.
Stories and Spoilers podcast. We're
Yes.
also on YouTube. I don't know how to say
Mhm.
we. I guess it's because I have guests on the podcast. I feel like I share the
I
platform quite a
also
bit.
say
I
we,
say we.
and it's just me doing
It's just
everything.
it's just me. But yeah, so but yes, it's us. Yeah, it's Stories and Spoilers podcast.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I talk about books and stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping to do a lot more fun stuff soon. I want to do an episode about
Yeah.
like vampires. I want to do more gothic romance, thrillers, suspense.
Girl, I love a
I love
vampire.
spicy romance.
Mm.
Yeah, I love it all.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'll link
trying to do.
everything in the description below. But
Ooh.
make sure if you enjoyed this episode, rate the podcast 5 stars. Nothing else but 5 stars, please and thank you. I don't want to keep my nice 5 star rating going.
Yeah.
Share with your friends. Follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast. Everything's linked below. And remember, read the book first.